Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Fire Up Wisconsin. My name is Scott Morganroth, the Motor City Man Mouth. If you look at the screen, you're going to think I'm Candy. No, folks, I didn't have a Bruce Jenner sex change or anybody that participates in that. I have nothing against it. Okay, but the reason why Candy's name is on here instead of me is tonight begins a new era for Fire Up Wisconsin. I'll preface the words of the late Bo Schembechler of the Michigan Wolverines that when Bill Frieder decided to leave the Michigan Wolverines men's basketball team, he decided to go to Arizona State. And when Frieder wanted to coach in the NCAA tournament, Bo Schembechler said he's not going to do it. I want a Michigan man doing it. Well, bring on Jeff Fisher, and he ended up leading the Wolverines 5 straight wins, of course, in the NCAA tournament. What does that mean? An NCAA championship. That said, with this being an all Wisconsin show, Eric Katz is there, Brett Gardaby is there, and I know he's that. And of course, Rick Curdy is a Milwaukee. He's been adopted by the state of Wisconsin and Milwaukee because he knows a heck of a lot more than a lot of people, anyways. And me, well, I have family there as well. So, but I don't think there's anybody that I can turn over this era here than Candy Ebling, who's done an outstanding job, not only building the South Florida Tribune website, but she's done a remarkable job putting the shows up there and her broadcasting. So she's worthy of this opportunity. And I expect Eric, Brett, Rick to support her well so you guys can make this a show that I know that you guys can definitely make it to support her. I know the one thing about her is she's filled in admirably on other shows. So it's time to give her her opportunity with you guys to take it to another level. So with that said, I'm only making a cameo to here tonight. Just want to let everybody know that I'll still be involved in the show, but I'll be behind the scenes as a guest from time to time, and also be promoting it on social media. So I won't be totally out of sight, out of mind, but I'm working on a lot of other shows that we're adding, both sports and non-sports, as well as my time in the field as well. So with that said, okay, the Detroit Lions beat the Green Bay Packers 15-9. Okay, being from Metro Detroit. Okay, as I am, I have a lot of passion for the Packers. Let me tell you first and foremost. Okay, number one of my best friends many years ago, Lee Remmel, and I hit it off well. I used to go to a lot of Packers games over at Lambeau Field. So whether my significant other or whatever wear Lions attire, I would be very proud to wear Green Bay Packers attire. When the Lions were knocked out, which was usually all the time, I always used to pull for the Packers. Can I get her to pull for the Lions? I don't know. Maybe if they're not playing each other, it's another story. All I can say about the game is Brett Favre had a bad afternoon, 3 interceptions.
Brett Favre.
Aaron Rodgers.
Favre, no, wrong.
Aaron
Okay,
Rodgers.
but it doesn't matter. I'm sure he's had a few of those. So there you go. That's why my senility is starting to kick in. No, Aaron Rodgers. Okay. Brett Favre had other things to deal with. It was just a joke, by the way. Okay. But at least they've had a lot of stability there. If you really think I was serious about it, then drink a different set of Kool-Aid. Okay, no. Aaron Rodgers had a tough day at the office. And I will tell you one thing. One of the reasons why he did have a tough day at the office is the Packers are feeling the effect of that lose-lose trade with the Las Vegas Raiders. Davante Adams should have stayed in Green Bay, paired up with Aaron Rodgers. As a result, to me, he's dealing with a piecemeal wide receiving core, which I think the Packers better have a lot of work to do to shore it up. So, no kidding around about the Brett Favre, but I won't kid about this. Of all the quarterbacks that have ever donned the Green Bay Packers uniform, Brett Favre still goes down as one of my all-time favorites. If for no other reason, I loved his gunslinger mentality, and that consecutive game streak to me is just off the charts. So that said, that's my piece. Bragging rights here. Okay, go to the Lions in round one. We'll see what happens when they play each other in the dead winter of Lambeau Field. But right now, I own bragging rights here. So with that said, okay, I'm going to step aside. Candy's going to take over the throne, and she's going to defer to each and every one of you about the game and whatever else she has on her agenda. Hey, here you go, Candy.
Thanks, Scott. So, guys, my house is divided. You can see behind me Packers versus Lions. Packers are normally on top, but What was wrong with that game this weekend? Eric, your comments.
Well, it's not like the Packers just laid a dud offensively like all game long. They moved the ball down the field. They had no problem moving the ball. Problem was they couldn't cash in, and rather than they only cashed the amount of like times they were in the red zone was unbelievable, and the amount of times they didn't cash in. Well, that's what happens when you reach the red zone. You're going to lose games if you can't cash in the end zone, and the Packers just were unable to do it.
Rick, what was wrong with the Packers?
Aaron Rodgers threw 3 interceptions. He's been throwing his team under the bus. He throws coaches under the bus. He throws everyone under the bus because he's Mr. Perfect. He didn't have a perfect game, did he? Threw 3 interceptions. He looked terrible. He hasn't been playing good at all. He's been playing bad. They paid him all that money. So that's why they can't get the players that he can, because a lot of the money went to him. And so he has nobody to blame but himself. I blame him for the Packers' problems. He needs to be a better teammate. He doesn't participate in the practice games or anything like that. And so it's like, what do you expect? And he lost Devontae Adams because he got upset, like, hey, I want the money too. You're not going to pay me. I'm out of here. I'll go play with Derek Carr. And that hurts them as well. So Aaron Rodgers and losing Devontae Adams have been the problem for the Packers, and they just look really bad this year.
Brett, your thoughts.
Yeah, let me double down on the Aaron Rodgers criticism here. Because if we break down all 3 interceptions, that first one he threw, we can say, oh, well, it deflected off a helmet. Well, let's say if it didn't get deflected, that ball was getting thrown closer to the linebacker than the actual receiver. So even if that doesn't get deflected, that was just an awful freaking throw. And then we got the one he threw it deep, but he stared down. I can't remember who he tried to on that third pick. Can't remember who the receiver was, but he stared him down the entire way, and it just got read perfectly by Kirby Joseph there, who had a heck of a game. So it just poor decision making, and just it's not like guys aren't getting open, because there were multiple times where guys are getting open. But what's happening? Aaron Rodgers, he's underthrowing him. He's throwing to everybody not named the Packers receivers. So I think right now the issue is Aaron Rodgers, and he's just not running the ball. He's not letting us run the ball. I genuinely think that he's audibling it at the line of scrimmage, or we're calling run pass options, except with Rodgers, it's just you might as well rename it to a pass option because he's not handing it off. So I just think Aaron Rodgers is the issue, and we need him to either be more accurate with these throws if he wants to throw it 40 times a game, or we just need to give the ball to Dillon. And I know Jones might be out for a while, but still, give the ball to Dillon. Let him run more.
I agree. It did not help anything that we had 6 of our Packers that were playing go down with injuries during that game. Now I know a couple of them came back. They were questionable, but that doesn't help. I think losing Devontae for Aaron Rodgers, that was his safety net. That was his go-to. That was his, if nobody else is open, I know Devontae will be open. Devontae knows where I'm going to be throwing that ball. He has not developed that chemistry with any of the receivers that he has out there. He maybe has that with Randall Cobb, but Randall Cobb is not the Randall Cobb that he once was, and he's injured. So he's not on the field. He's not that safety net. Aaron needs to have that safety net, and he doesn't have it right now. And I don't know if he needs, I hate to say this, but glasses or what it is, because you're right. He is not seeing the field like he used to see it. I don't know if it's age. I hate to, say that, but he just doesn't see the field like we're used to him seeing the field. He also throws, I know, and I've heard this before, that he throws to where the receiver should be. Well, things happen. The defense hits guys. The defense, intercepts their runs, changes maybe where they're going to be. Aaron needs to adhere to that and throw to his receivers, not where he thinks they're going to be, because they're not. And throwing to David Bakhtiari, come on. Really? I know he's your best friend, but how many times has he caught passes from Rodgers? Maybe in practice, maybe that's going to be his safety net now. I don't know. I was disappointed with the showing, and obviously my house is divided. Again, they played on our wedding day. Packers came out ahead on that day, but this year, I, I'm hoping, really hoping that at Lambeau we can improve. What do we think they're going to do this next week? They go against Dallas, and Dallas is playing pretty good.
I think
Well,
you made
here's
a
the
really.
thing. Well, here's
You
the
go.
thing too. I mean, he had opportunities last year to develop something with Alan Lazard, who was on the squad last year. But keep this in mind, though. Aaron Rodgers just never really involved anyone else. It was Devontae Adams or bust. Matter of fact, the second leading receiver on the team was Aaron Jones last year. So the Packers really should have seen this coming, where no Packer receiver had more than 40 catches. The guy who had those 40 catches was Alan Lazard. It was just always constantly throwing to Devontae Adams. The Packers really should have seen this coming because they had no depth behind him. That's the biggest thing that I think is holding the Packers back is, number one, Aaron Rodgers just threw it to Devontae Adams all day long. And it was pretty much Devontae or nothing on offense. I mean, yeah, Robert Tonyan kind of became a fan favorite, but last year, he really only caught a few passes. He had a couple of nice touchdowns, but what did he do the rest of the year? I mean, Aaron Rodgers supposedly is good friends with Robert Tonyan, but he hasn't been getting it done. I mean, you don't win games with fan favorites. And the fact of the matter is, they had, the second league receiver on the team was Aaron Jones. But what does that tell you about the rest of the Packers receiving corps? I mean, there are yes, that was a bad showing by Rodgers. At the end of the day, the interceptions go to him. But the Packers did not do anything for him. They thought, we can just roll with what we have. It'll be Aaron Rodgers taking this up top. Well, Aaron Rodgers isn't Brett Favre. Aaron Rodgers doesn't elevate talent. As a matter of fact, he kind of downgrades talent a little bit because Aaron Rodgers is not a patient guy. He doesn't play in the preseason, which this year he probably should have, given the fact that he did lose his favorite target in Devontae Adams. And Devontae Adams, he didn't leave because of the money or anything like that. He left because he couldn't bear to play with. He didn't want to play with Jordan Love if Jordan Love was going to be the starter. Which, to be truthful, I don't blame him. And that's why he left. He wanted Rodgers to come back, but Rodgers was kind of, is he going to stay? Is he not going to stay? So Devontae Adams makes up his mind and gets traded to the Raiders. And that's why Adams left. Had Rodgers been committed about staying, I am sure Adams would be back. But Rodgers' own hesitancy cost him his favorite target.
I agree. Brett, you were going to say something?
Yeah, I was going to say you made a really good point on Rodgers throwing to where he thinks receivers should be, and instead of to them. You saw that on that last play of the game with Sammy Watkins. He thought he should go to the corner, so he threw it there, except that cornerback was shading it to, like he was playing the fade, so he couldn't really get out to that corner, so it just fell incomplete. But no, at the end of the day, I saw that too coming with the Packers receivers. We knew that they weren't going to be great this year. I even said that if we can keep our offense within like the top half of the league, not expecting us to crack the top 10, but if we could at least be decent, then we'd be fine. But I didn't expect it to be this bad. And a big part of that is I thought the key to our offense this year should have been, let's pound the ball with Jones. Let's pound the ball with Dillon. Let's run it 30, 35 times. Open up the play action. Give Rodgers easier throws to these guys. And we're just not doing it. We're just dropping back every time. And it's just predictable at this point. Everything comes down to also is he's not taking a lot of chances. He's dumping it off behind the line of scrimmage on most of these plays. So now I know I can load 10 guys within 10 yards of the line of scrimmage, and Rodgers ain't going to burn me. He's not going to throw it down there, and if he does, who's going to beat me? Alan Lazard? Randall Cobb? So, yeah, the issue partially is we don't have a field spacer, which we thought maybe Christian Watson could be, but Christian Watson at the same time can't stay on the field.
I mean, you can't expect a rookie receiver to all of a sudden come out and be Randy Moss. It's just not possible. But, that's the thing. The Packers had glaring needs at wide receivers for a couple years now. They needed somebody else besides Devontae Adams. Marquez Valdez-Scantling couldn't be the number 2. Alan Lazard couldn't be the number 2. Randall Cobb showed he's better in the slot, and he's not a number 2 receiver. That's been the Packers' biggest downfall. For some reason, they think yes, defensive backs are important, but drafting these receivers in the later rounds, you pretty much roll the dice on whether or not they're going to be good. The big issue there was, instead of drafting a wide receiver, you drafted what I think is essentially amounts to a bust of a quarterback in Jordan Love. Now, Jordan Love has some time, but right now, from what I've seen, he can't throw the ball down the field, and you need that this day and age to win football games. And the issue there is that was a deep receiver class that year. You had Denzel Mims, you had a lot of people in there, and especially even this past year with Garrett Wilson being available to draft and a whole bunch more. But the Packers decided to pass and get another defensive back. Essentially, they've wasted the rest of Aaron Rodgers' career, where they had a chance to get that second Super Bowl ring. But the issue being, once again, I think you got to put this on Brian Gutekunst. I can't put this on Matt LaFleur, because Matt LaFleur can only work with what he's given. And I got to put it on Gutekunst. Yes, it went without trying. He did try and get some wide receivers reportedly, offering some draft picks for him like DJ Moore, but the Panthers made it abundantly clear that he is part of their future, which rightfully so, because he's a very good wide receiver. And they also reportedly tried to get Waller, and the Packers said no, thank you. But Odell, not ideal, but Odell Beckham Jr. is still out there. Granted, the guy can sometimes be a bit of a headache, but I think he's a little misunderstood there. He did just fine with the Rams during the Super Bowl run, despite tearing his ACL in the Super Bowl. And I think he would have been, at least, I'm not going to say he was the answer, but he would have been a nice upgrade. Sammy Watkins, he's shown it throughout his entire career. He can't stay healthy, and it's showing now. And Sammy Watkins is more banged up than a car during a winter storm. I think that that's another issue there, and also letting MVS go, that hurt. You had at least, I wouldn't call it, you could have upped his role. And in Kansas City, he's doing a pretty good job with Patrick Mahomes. Granted, there's a lot of mouths to feed there, but still, he's still been very productive there. And they were thinking Alan Lazard could be that guy. Well, Alan Lazard can't stay on the field either. And this was a depth issue that you could have addressed for the past couple seasons now, and you didn't. Amari Rodgers, I'm not even sure where he is right now. But the fact is, Gutekunst really messed this one up. The receiving core needed help after Devontae left, and he didn't do it.
Agreed. Okay, let's shift gears. We're still staying on the football field, though. Let's talk about the Badgers, and right now their interim head coach, Jim Leonard. Thoughts before I say any about mine. Let's start with Brett. Let's start with you. Thoughts about Jim Leonard and the Badgers.
I like the way that they ran the ball last week. 278 yards on the ground. I'll be honest, I haven't gotten to watch too much of the Badgers. I tend to work Saturdays during their games, so I'll defer this one for the most part, though.
Okay. Rick, your thoughts?
I love Jim Leonard. I think he's a superstar. They need to keep him. If they go get another coach like a Matt Rule, and I don't think he's going to take probably a couple years off, because the Pats are going to pay him like $40 million left on his contract, so he can take a nice long vacation. But Jim Leonard, they need to keep him. I love him. I watch his press conferences. Smart guy. Is professional. He was said that he was the best defensive coordinator in all of college football. This guy is a star. He's young. He's bright. I just see a lot of more energy with them. They're playing better now. And I would be shocked if Wisconsin goes another direction and gets him, because if they do get another head coach, he is gone. He'll go somewhere else. They'll snatch him up in a heartbeat, like Nebraska or maybe a Colorado. But I like Jim Leonard, and he needs to stay there. He's a great coach.
Eric, your thoughts?
Well, the Badgers have only lost one game since Jim Leonard took over as head coach. That was an unfortunate overtime game against Michigan State on the road, mind you. But the rest of the time, the Badgers have won. Actually, they blew out Northwestern in their house. That doesn't happen very often. For some reason, the Badgers have this tendency to play poorly there, no matter how good or bad Northwestern is. But, last week against Maryland. Now, Maryland in and of themselves is a good team. I wouldn't call them like
They're very good.
a perennial Big Ten contender by any means, but still they're going to a bowl this year, and this is the best they've looked. They also have Tua's brother, but they ran the ball extremely well. It was windy as all get out there. I know they only allowed the high flying Terps offense led by Talia Tagovailoa. They only let him have 77 yards passing. He scored a touchdown late in garbage time. But the Badgers defense really shut him down. And also overall, they ran the ball very well. I mean, I wasn't expecting Graham Mertz to do a whole lot of anything with that wind. You're not throwing the ball in that weather because it is windy, and the ball, even when he did throw the ball, it was, he kind of just managed the game at that point because you're not throwing the ball in that type of wind. But the Badgers, overall, the Badgers, they've only lost one game since Leonard took over. And they're on the cusp of going to another bowl game. As a matter of fact, if they do this right, if they win out, they've got a chance at going to the Big Ten championship. Granted, they would need help, but I don't think anybody envisioned having the Wisconsin Badgers in this conversation. And it also allowed Bobby Engram to have the offense all to himself, because Paul Chryst is notorious for being hands-on with the offense. That's his specialty, especially quarterbacks. That's what made him a head coach twice over, once in Pittsburgh and then the rest of the time in Wisconsin. Now, I'm not bad-mouthing Chryst by any means, because Chryst won 70% of his games there. It was just the last few years, you could tell the message had become stale. I know he didn't lose the locker room because the players have nothing but kind words to say about him, and they were all very supportive of him, and they all felt bad about what happened from what I gathered. But why would you let Jim Leonard go? He could have gone anywhere he wanted to go at this point. He has opportunities every single offseason to go somewhere, to the point where at one point people were in Wisconsin were panicking that he would leave. But it's got to the point where I'm just like, he's not going to leave. We go through this every offseason, and he still hasn't left yet. He loves the university. The Wisconsin, since he took over, is give me a second here. They are 3-1 since he took over. They're playing really good football, and they're getting a lot out of that defense, which is very young this year. My thing is keep Leonard, because someone else is going to hire him. Guarantee it.
So here's my 2 cents. You've gone 3-1 with Leonard. There's an excitement and around the whole football program. People in the community are excited about it. Fans are excited about it. The players are excited. They said the way that he runs into the locker room and greets everybody, that he's just very, very down to earth, very good. My problem is, don't wait too long. And here's the reason. If you don't remove that interim tag, you are trying to go out there and recruit 4 years down the road. Wisconsin is not, how should I put it? They're not an Ohio State. They're not a Michigan. They're not an Alabama. You're trying to recruit the same guys that they are. You're not going to win recruiting those guys, especially if you don't have a head coach in place. Let's get rid of the interim tag. Let's just give it to him now. He deserves it, and we don't want him someplace else. Stop. Do it now.
I agree, especially because it wasn't look like Wisconsin was going much anywhere to begin the year. Matter of fact, you could argue that despite the 1-3 loss the year prior, you could argue that this year's slide felt way worse than last year's. I mean, 1-3 is bad, but keep in mind they had a tough schedule going up against Notre Dame and Penn State. I mean, say what you want about Penn State. Penn State's still a good team, no matter what you say about them. but they had a tougher schedule last year and were actually in those ball games up until they made some critical turnover mistakes. But, you know, what happens when you fire a coach at the college level, and this goes for any sport. This could be any sport, including non-revenue sports. Recruiting just goes up in shambles because now you don't know if the guy's going to stay. You don't know if you don't know what the next coach is. Oh, am I going to jibe with this guy? People generally, because of the uncertainty there, I'm not saying everybody does this, but a lot of people do. People like to reopen their commitments and tell the other guys saying, "Hey, I'm a free agent now. What do you got?" And tell me you're going to stay. Because if you can guarantee you're going to stay, you know, you'll be able to get the skilled players. You know, that's just what happens when you fire coaches or a coach gets under like a scandal or whatever. Just ask the University of Illinois a few years back. We all know what happened there. But you know, the fact is, Jim Leonard, new energy. It's a new buzz. It's a fresh voice. The players know him because he's been there for a while. Actually, it feels like he hasn't left aside from when he played in the NFL and actually had a pretty good career for what it was worth. And you know, he's been there. The players know him. The players respond well to him. They play hard for him, and he knows how to get the best out of those guys. I mean, they just hired an offensive coordinator, so it makes sense to keep him. As a matter of fact, Graham Mertz has never looked better. He's doing pretty good for a Wisconsin quarterback. Actually, I wouldn't put him up there with Tolzien, but if he keeps it up under Ingram, he just might end up like Scott Tolzien. But we shall see. But if I'm Wisconsin right now, you better remove the tag. Number one, the guy's got you within bowl eligibility. Yeah, you're going on the road against Iowa, but Iowa has looked offensive less. I mean, yeah, they had a really good win against Purdue on the road, which I will grant you that. But Purdue's defense has not looked that great this year. I don't mean to hate on Kirk Ferentz because Kirk Ferentz has done wonders for the University of Iowa, but they're going up against Wisconsin. And last year against Wisconsin, when I was ranked in within the top 10, it was a long day at Camp Randall Stadium, and for a while too, up until 2020, Wisconsin had their number in Iowa City.
Yes, I agree. Let's switch our focus. Let's switch to the NBA and our Milwaukee Bucks, who started out the season 9-0. They are currently 9-1. Thoughts, Rick? Why don't you start us with this category?
I love the Bucks because everybody wants to talk about the mess with the Lakers and the Nets and all this drama with Durant and Kyrie Irving. And so under the radar, you hear about no one's talking about the Bucks. You know, they're 9-1. They have one of the most. I mean, if I wasn't running the NBA, you know, forget about LeBron and Durant. I would make the Greek Freak my face. That is a guy you want to make the face of your league. Great player. He's won MVPs, a championship. Nice, down-to-earth, humble human being. Not all this mess and drama with all this other nonsense that the NBA does. And, you know, and they need to clean up their image. But with the Bucks, I love this team. They're just a great team. Nobody talks about them. I think they love it because we don't want people to talk about us. We want to be under the radar and let them talk about all these other superstars. We're just going to keep playing. We're doing great. We're playing great. Milwaukee's, you know, city that's growing. They love their Bucks. And, you know, everyone's always so obsessed with going to these big markets. You don't have to go a big market no more. You can be in a Milwaukee. You can be in a Charlotte. You can be, you know, anywhere. So I love what they're doing. Keep it up. Greek Freak, great player. I love the Bucks.
Brett, your thoughts on the Bucks?
Couldn't have asked for a better start. Before the season even started, I predicted that we'd lose 2 games in the first 4. So the fact that we started out 9-1 is phenomenal. I thought that not having Middleton, Ingles, and Connington would hurt us more than it has. Now, you know, we still feel their absence. We do go mighty cold from 3 still, but I do think that's just going to get better over time when those 3 return. I think the real X Factor MVP of the Bucks has been the resurgence of Brook Lopez this year. He's shooting like 36, 37% from 3. like 2.5 blocks a game. He's given us about 15, 17 points a game. Like, we expected Drew, to be him. We knew he was going to give us, at times, occasionally he'll give us real bad duds on offense, but we knew he'd get solid production with DPOI caliber defense. We already knew what to expect from Giannis. But Brook was a little bit more of an X factor because he's just coming off back surgery last year. He looked slow when he played last year, just coming off the surgery. He was getting his first full offseason, so he was one guy that I wasn't sure what to expect, and he has absolutely knocked it out of the park. So, yeah, I couldn't have asked for a better start from this Milwaukee team.
Eric, your thoughts?
Well, number one, in the state of Wisconsin, it's all about just shutting up and working. That's just how it is. We don't want the flash. We don't need the glamour. We don't need the Kyrie Irving mess. A matter of fact, as far as the NBA image is concerned, they've needed to clean their image. A matter of fact, probably after Ron Artest decided to go up in the stands and go ahead and bash some heads, you would think that they would have been on it by now. Also, don't forget Tim Donaghy. We have referees gambling, and they ultimately control the game. So as far as the NBA image is concerned, and even before that, when Kermit Washington decided to drop a scoreboard on Rudy Tomjanovich, the NBA has needed this. It's been a problem for a long, long time. And also, we can all, I think some of us, if people of a certain age, will remember the Jailblazers. So as far as the NBA image, this wasn't a fun team that was like that would bowl you on the court like the Bad Boys did during the 90s, during the 80s and parts of the 90s. But this is talking about real life stuff where your boy is getting some handcuffs on and then having to go to the police station to go explain what happened. But as far as the Bucks go, we don't want the attention. That's just not how it is. We'll just play. You come into 5-serve or whatever, or wherever we go. I mean, 901's pretty good. I mean, against Atlanta, they were on the road. Tough. It was a tough deal. I mean, yeah, they're feeling the effects of not having Middleton there, but Grayson Allen stepped up pretty big. Brook Lopez is looking like the Brook Lopez of old, and Giannis has been playing MVP ball, and then also Drew Holiday. Drew Holiday is still a terrific defender. Heck, he's even a pretty good scorer too. They are quietly a great team. As a matter of fact, they won a championship for the reason. I really believe had they not lost Middleton in the playoffs against the Celtics, they probably would have made it to the championship. Not saying they would have beat Golden State, because Golden State was just unbelievable that year, being able to roll out a lineup, being able to just roll out onto the court and just win. That's the type of team they had. But they would have probably at least made it. But this team right now, Grayson Allen stepped up. I mean, yeah, they go cold from 3 from time to time, but Grayson Allen's still a great shooter, and also, Lopez is doing well from the outside the arc. Giannis is Giannis. I mean, what more do you want to say about him? And yeah, they're not the drama queens of the NBA like the Lakers and the Lakers, as well as the Nets, and to an extent the Knicks, although not as much anymore. Finally, after Jim Dolan decided to go away.
I agree. I think the one X factor that we haven't mentioned too is Bobby Portis and the electric energy that he has brought back to the team. His excitement. Yes, obviously Holiday on a cup. What can we say about Giannis? Lopez has really rebounded, came back from his injury. I mean, he suffered injury last year and he played not as many games. And so I think we really missed him. Yes, we missed Middleton because we missed that 3-point out from the arc shot, but I give him a lot of credit. 9-0 to start the year was unbelievable. And it's an excitement that has been brought back to Milwaukee that I think we really needed. We embrace our team, good or bad, but let's face it, there's an electricity about the city that when everything is going well, that the whole city, you can just feel it walking around. Everybody's talking about it. You see it on the news. It just electrifies the city. So With that, we're
I
going to
mean,
talk. Go ahead.
You can argue that, it's a great time to be in Milwaukee right now. I mean, just like I'd like to compare it to when Fernando Valenzuela took over the Los Angeles Dodgers. Yeah, and the city of Los Angeles itself. Giannis has taken over Milwaukee. I mean, you can argue and call it, Giannis mania if you want, or Giannis nation. I mean, everywhere I walk, somebody's wearing something Giannis. I mean, everywhere you walk, but it doesn't matter. You don't even have to be by Five Serve or downtown for that matter. You could be just in the neighborhood and you see somebody wearing a Giannis jersey or T-shirt or what have you. Everywhere you go.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. That's great. Okay, we're gonna switch a little bit to baseball, and this isn't necessarily just Wisconsin, but they recently came out with a contemporary ERA Hall of Fame ballot, and so they put some people on the ballot. We're gonna go around the horn. I'm gonna say a name that they put on the ballot. I want you to say yay or nay to being in the Hall of Fame, and you can do a quick why if you want to, or you don't have to, and we'll just keep going around for each candidate. First candidate, Albert Bell. Eric, yes or no?
I mean, yes. I mean, if Harold Baines can get into the Hall of Fame, Albert Bell should be in there too. He was probably one of the game's best power hitters in the 90s. I mean, yes, the dude is just not a very good dude, but 381 home runs and a 295 batting average as well, and over and over 1,200 RBI in his career. I mean, how can you not put that in the Hall of Fame? I mean, Harold Baines is in there for crying out loud.
Okay, Rick, Albert Bell, in or no?
Albert, don't call me Joey Bell. No, great player, power hitter, but to me, just didn't do enough to have that longevity for a Hall of Fame career.
Brett, Albert Bell, in or no?
Great power hitter, but yeah, I'm gonna. This one's pretty tough. It could go either way. I'm gonna agree with Eric on this one. I'll go yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna say, Hall of Fame is a tough place to get into. I'm gonna say no on this one. I'm gonna say yeah, he's borderline, and I'm gonna say no. Next person, Barry Bonds, Eric.
Yes. Forget the steroid era. I'm kind of getting tired of the out of touch writers. Remind me of people that you work with at work, where they're older than you. They can't relate to you because you're from two different because you guys didn't arrive on the planet at the same time. Or in some cases, these guys probably saw Hannes Wagner play baseball. But I would say yes to Bonds, game's best power hitter. He was dumping balls into the bay. As a matter of fact, as bad as steroids are and as immoral as they are, you still have to put bat on ball. And Barry Bonds did it at an obscene rate. Including when he was constantly dumping baseballs into the bay, something that doesn't happen very often in San Francisco anymore, unless you really give it a whack. But Barry Bonds did it on a regular basis. You got to put him in the Hall. I mean, even before that, he was a 30-30 guy. How can you not put that in the Hall of Fame? That's probably one of the best all-around hitters of all time.
Rick Curdy, Barry, yes or no?
I must be one of those old people, Eric. Absolutely not. Are you kidding me? If it wasn't for steroids, he would not be in the Hall of Fame. If it wasn't for steroids, he would not be the home run king. He was not hitting 50, 60 home runs when he was 20. He was a 30-30 guy. The first part of Barry Bonds without the steroids, yes. The second part, all fake, all fraud like Lance Armstrong. He would not be the home run king without steroids. He would not be breaking these obscene records without the steroids. Absolutely not.
Brett, Barry Bonds in the Hall of Fame or no?
Yeah, no, 100%. You are talking about not only one of the best power hitters of all time, the most feared hitter of all time. If you want a stat that exemplifies that, let's look at the MLB leaders for intentional walks throughout their career. Barry Bonds, 688. Number 2 on that list, Albert Pujols with 316. We're talking about a guy that the bases are loaded and they're like, I would rather give up a run and put this guy on first than pitch to him. So, no, absolutely. Over 2,000 walks drawn for his career, and not to mention 762 homers. And the fact of the matter is, in Pittsburgh, he was still a Gold Glove caliber player. He was still a 30-30 threat. He was stealing lots of bases. He was still hitting the long ball. He was a Hall of Famer even before he decided to juice up. So, yeah, at the end of the day, he should be a Hall of Famer.
So here's my 2 cents. Go ahead, Eric.
He was all, yeah, I mean, having multiple 30-30 years should be enough to get you in the Hall of Fame. I mean, Barry Larkin did it 4 times. But Barry Bonds, Barry Bonds did it, oh my God, he did it like pretty close to multiple more times than that. I mean, you got a guy, and he was still knocking in 100 plus runs a season. He would have been a Hall of Famer even without the roids.
The best hitter of all time.
So what I'm going to say
High
is
Cobb, 367 lifetime batting average.
there is a section in the Hall of, there's a section in the Hall of Fame, and I can attest to this because I was there this summer, that has an exhibit that talks about steroid use. Put a separate wing that talks about him in there, that talks about be open and honest steroid use, but has his stats in there too. You can have a separate part of the Hall of Fame that has these so-called questionable type players, because yes, did he take steroids? Yes, but did he still hit so many home runs? Did he get walked? Yes, I agree. But put him in with the asterisks in a separate section is what I would do. Next person, Roger Clemens. Does he belong in or no? Eric.
Yes. I mean, it hasn't been proved. Okay, everybody was just pointing the finger at him because at the time, George Mitchell decided to burn up a report about supposed guys that used it. And basically he was saying, you use steroids, you use steroids, you use steroids, including people who hadn't been active, who were active before steroids became a hit. Take Lenny Dykstra, for example. Say what you want about that guy, but, he was also ultimately pointing the finger at him too, and guys who hadn't played baseball in a really long time. So, but I'm sure y'all enjoyed it when McGuire and Sosa were cracking baseballs over the fence left and right any given day of the week, all 7 days if you want to go there. Y'all were enjoying it. Y'all were entertained. Y'all were mad in '94, but y'all came back when McGuire and Sosa were bashing home runs. Oh, you loved it. And then all of a sudden you found, and all of a sudden Bud Selig finds religion and decides to open the lid of Pandora's box. Which, to be truthful, I thought Bud Selig should have been held out of the Hall of Fame too, because he decides to turn a blind eye to it, and all of a sudden he found religion. But Roger Clemens, I mean, he put up unreal pitching numbers. You all decided to accuse him. Yeah, they had a perjury case for him, but you didn't prove anything with it. Matter of fact, you probably wasted taxpayer dollars on it. But my thing is with Clemens is you have to let him in. I mean, he has over 3,000 strikeouts. He's probably as close to Nolan Ryan as you'll get. And Nolan Ryan is the greatest pitcher of all time. I mean, nobody played as long and still struck out batters at a rate that Nolan Ryan did. 354 wins, and then he has over 300 wins in his career. He also has won 18 or more games multiple times. I don't know why you could just all of a sudden say, pretty much in the writers' court in the baseball writers' room, it's guilty until proven innocent. That seems to be the theme of their writing and them voting for guys who just won't even crack the Hall of Fame because they can. Clemens deserves in. I mean, we won't see another pitcher like that. I don't think Verlander even matches up to that, and Verlander is a great pitcher.
Rick, your thoughts on Roger Clemens, in or no? Oh, we lost Rick. Brett, your thoughts about Roger Clemens?
Yeah, I think he absolutely should. At the end of the day, a lot of people want to blast steroids, but at the end of the day, that steroid era is what saved baseball. It's what brought interest back to the game with the home run chase between Sosa, McGuire. You had Griffey Jr. in there for a while, but he ended up falling off. Couldn't keep up with the other two. But yeah, absolutely, I think so. So I do believe that Roger Clemens should be in the Hall of Fame.
Okay, Rick, your thoughts on Roger Clemens?
Sorry about that. I had some technical issues, but it's all
You're
fixed now.
fine.
Sorry about that. I'm gonna say this again. I'm very consistent. No steroid users. He's a user. We should not get him in. And to answer Eric's question, yeah, we were all excited about Sosa and the McGuire's home run. You know what else I was excited about? Lance Armstrong winning 7 Tour de France's till we found out he was another cheater. So I was excited
Sounds like
about
about a
that, and he was
religion.
another fraud. So Roger Clemens, absolutely not. No steroid users. Unfortunately, they put one in David Ortiz. So if you're gonna let him in, you gotta let them all
Because
in.
he was likable. Because he was likable. And number
Yeah,
one,
because he's a nice
you
guy.
sound like yeah, that's why he got let in. And matter of fact, Clemens, I think, was kind of misunderstood. He was never proven to take in steroids. He was just accused to the point they wasted money on a perjury trial to make him look stupid.
Okay, my thought again, Roger Clemens. Let's put him. If you're gonna put one in, and if you're gonna put an exhibit about steroid users, you have to put them all in, and you can't just distinguish. Yes, this one should be in, and that one shouldn't be in. Put them all in, but put them in a separate wing or a separate section. Okay, Eric, does Don Mattingly belong in or no?
Oh boy, I love Donnie baseball. I really do. Not just the Yankee connection, but a terrific guy and obviously a great manager. Which he took the Marlins farther than anybody else could ever take them. Boy, I mean, the problem is he didn't have the longevity. I mean, that's the only thing. Although he was an all-star. He was AL MVP once. He was a Gold Glover and a Silver Slugger in that short period of time, and obviously 6 All-Star appearances. Yeah, deep in the heart of Yankee fans, they want him in, but to me, it's really close because it could go either way. I just think that because Don's career was because he doesn't have that longevity. I mean, it's the same complex the writers have with Thurman Munson. Where Thurman Munson, yeah, great career in a short period of time, but didn't play long enough. Donnie baseball played. Problem is his teams didn't win. His teams were not that good. They only made it to the playoffs once, and there's a reason they call it the dark years and Mattingly on Wikipedia. I just don't think the guy gets in just because he wasn't on any winning Yankee team. The only team that he went to the playoffs with was at the last year of his career in 1995, and that was the year before the Yankees launched another dynasty in the 90s. So I just don't think he has. His team's never won. That's the problem, and I just don't. For that reason, I don't think he belongs within the Hall.
Okay, Brett, Don Mattingly, does he belong in or no?
All right, real quick, I want to change my answer for Albert Bell. In my head, his stats are much better than they actually look, so I'm going to change my answer on him. I'm going to change him to a no.
Okay.
Don Mattingly, he's tough. I do respect him for the fact that he is, I believe, the MLB all-time leader in grand slams with 22. He hit 307 for his career. He was a really good hitter. I don't think he gets in, but I do respect him for what he did for the game. I do think he's going to be in the Hall of Very Good, but I don't think he's the Hall of Fame.
Okay. Rick, does Don Mattingly belong in or no?
No, I love Don Mattingly. Remember, this is the Hall of Fame, not the Hall of being a very nice guy. If we had a Hall of being a very nice guy, Don Mattingly would be a first ballot. But like Eric said, his longevity was short-lived. When I saw Don Mattingly, he was just a shell of himself. The back problems really hurt his career. He was a phenomenal first baseman, one of the best hitters, had 145 RBIs one year. There was a guy who was going to win the Triple Crown, would have been him in his prime. And unfortunately, the back issues. And yeah, he was with the Yankees when they were not very good. And then when he did retire, that's when they went on that dynasty. So unfortunately, it was just bad luck for Don Mattingly. He's a great manager. I love the guy to death, but I'm going to have to say no.
Okay, so we're saying no to 6-time All-Star, an AL MVP for 1 year, a 9 Golden Glove Award winner, and a 3-time Silver Slugger Award. He has over 2,000 hits, over 1,000 runs batted in, 222 home runs. I'm gonna say yes. I believe he belongs in. Was he a good manager? I think he was a good manager too. I mean, he took the Marlins to places where I didn't think anybody could. The Marlins have not been a good team. He did not have a good supporting cast on that team, and he did what he could with them. Let's go on to the next. Fred McGriff. In or no, Eric?
Oh, Fred McGriff. That's an easy one. That's a yes. I mean, I'm surprised they haven't put him in already. I mean, how can you not put it? I don't even know how he isn't in the Hall of Fame by now. I mean, gosh, why can't you put it? Why isn't Crime Dog in the Hall of Fame? I mean, he almost nearly hit 500 home runs. There are guys who hit way less home runs than he did that have made it to the Hall of Fame. But Fred McGriff, he was, let's see, he was a 5-time All-Star. He hit 493 home runs. I mean, there are guys under him who hit less and are in the Hall. I don't know how he isn't in by now, but with what he accomplished in his career and what he was able to do. As a matter of fact, especially what he's doing now I believe the Atlanta Braves front office. He was a 5-time All-Star. He won their most recent World Series in 1995 up until a season ago, or a couple seasons ago. And McGriff played a big role in that. He had almost 2,500 hits and over 1,550 runs batted in. I mean, gosh, Crime Dog has to be in the Hall.
Brett, Fred McGriff, in or no?
You might want to see. I'm really biased just because I love watching Fred McGriff. I loved watching Crime Dog growing up. So I really want to say yes. And you know what? Looking at his statistics in front of me, I'm gonna go with yes, but I might have a little bit of bias on that one.
Okay, Rick, in or no?
I'm sorry. I've been shouting at this at the rooftops for years and years and years and years. Absolutely, he should be in. How he's not in the Hall of Fame is beyond me. The guy could play in both leagues. He actually led in home runs in both leagues. 7 years in a row, he hit 30 or more home runs, where back then hitting 30 was like hitting 40 home runs a year. One of the best defensive first basemen, won a World Series. I mean, what more can you do? And the guy is so underappreciated, so underrated. No scandals. I've never heard one writer, because a lot of these writers hold these grudges. Never heard one writer say anything bad about him, hear anything bad about him. How is he not in the Hall of Fame is beyond me. It's a travesty, in my opinion. He should have been in many, many years ago.
So I'm going to say Fred McGriff belongs in. He had 493 career home runs, which ties him with Hall of Fame player Lou Gehrig, and only 7 homers away from joining the 500 run club. He had almost 2,500 hits. I think he belongs in. Next player, Dale Murphy. Eric.
Dale Murphy. Oh boy. Gotta really think about this one.
Okay.
It's a tough call with I mean, Murphy played for a long time and he had a lot of All-Star appearances, but I just think that he played for a while, obviously big with the Atlanta Braves, and he was a 7-time All-Star and 2-time MVP. But yeah, I would say yes, but he's because of the All-Star appearances but the problem is he only hit 398 home runs in his career. I think had he hit a little bit more, he would have had a better shot. Yeah, he's won the MVP twice and he's won a Gold Club 5 different times, but his biggest issue was the power, and also if you can't get it done with power, because he was never a big average hitter. The end of his career really hurt him. I think had he been able to keep his batting average up, he'd be in. But the problem is that the end of his career, like after the Atlanta Braves years, that's what really hurt him. So I'm going to say yes, but not by very much.
Okay, Brett.
Yeah, I was thinking about the same. What really sticks out to me, what looks rough to me about him is a 265 batting average for his career. I do think the MVPs and the Gold Gloves, get him in. He did almost hit 400 home runs over, 1,266 RBIs. So, yeah, I'd say he gets in. It's a close call, but yeah.
Rick.
Well, again, like Don Manley, if we had the Hall of Very Nice Guys, he'd be in. I've met Dale Murphy. He is nothing but a wonderful, wonderful human being. But unfortunately, and I saw him play with the Braves, and I cried literally when he got traded to the Phillies. And no, it's close, but I think the batting average, and yeah, he didn't hit 400 home runs, and he played with the Braves that were not very good. And unfortunately, Manley, once he left the Braves, that's when they went on their dynasty and played really great. Unfortunately, but for me, I love the guy, but no, I'm gonna say no for Hall of Fame.
So my question to you guys is, his career, during part of his career, we had work stoppages too. So remember, there are some shortened seasons there where he couldn't, maybe have as many hits, but yet he played how many years? So I'm going to say yes. He's 7-time All-Star, 2-time NL MVP, 5-time Golden Glove, 4-time Silver Slugger, 2-time National Home Run Leader, 2-time National RBI Leader. The Atlanta Braves retired his number.
Yeah.
How many numbers are retired in most of these, organizations? So,
Too many.
Yeah.
The same with Fred McGriff. You could say the same. So I think retired numbers.
Crime Dog. I mean, the deal is though with you can say about we can shout the blues about the strike canceled seasons. I mean, we can say if '94 would have happened, Don Mattingly would have been in the postseason, with aside from the last year of his career. But the issue there is we don't really know. I mean, Dale Murphy could have very easily still hit the average that he ended up hitting later in his career, and still wouldn't get into the Hall of Fame, because the end of his career really hurt him. I thought like after the Braves years, he really should have.
The Phillies and the Rockies, he was not
good
at all.
Like the Rockies, he just got in because they were an expansion team at the time. But but the thing about it is, he had a long career, but the average wasn't there. If you're gonna have a middle of the road batting average, subpar average, so let's just take his for instance, 265. You better back it up with the home runs, and he was unable to do that. Had he been into the 400 land, then he might have been able to get into the Hall of Fame. But 398. I mean, it's just not enough. I mean, had he just hit for average and then had those stats, I think he would have been okay. But the problem is, not enough power numbers to compensate for a mediocre batting average.
Okay. Let's go to Rafael Palmeiro. In or no, Eric?
Oh, this is a tough one. Such a polarizing player.
We don't make it easy. I mean, we didn't make up these names though either.
I mean, 3,000 hits is 3,000 hits. I mean, he lied.
Huh?
Yeah, he lied about his steroid use, and he was eventually caught. But, oh boy, this is a tough case, okay? Because if I roll it one way, people will make one argument. Then I roll it the other way, then I'm getting hit regardless. I'm gonna say yes, but not by very much. Yeah, 3,000. Yeah, he had 3,000 hits in his career, but yes, he did. But at the end of the day, the Hall of Fame shouldn't be about the type of person you are, because there's plenty of bad people in the Baseball Hall of Fame. Let me tell you, Ty Cobb comes to mind, who was.
He didn't take steroids though. It's different. It's not the same.
Ty Cobb was a racist, and he was doing Ron Artest things before
He
Ron
didn't
Artest things
he didn't
were
take
possible.
steroids. He didn't take steroids.
It didn't exist. But yes, I mean, at this point with the Hall of Fame, you're gonna be pointing everybody who's coming on this ballot, the current ballot now, played in the steroid era. So you can't tell me you're gonna go through 5 to 10 years of nobody getting into the Hall of Fame. That's why David Ortiz was elected. You just can't do it. I mean, the writers are already on already on people's naughty list at the moment, and everybody knows just how out of touch they are with the sport. But they are, but but Palmeiro, you got to put him in. You put in Bonds, which you should put in Bonds. You should put it, you put in David Ortiz. Well, hell, put in Rafael Palmeiro.
Okay, Brett.
Yeah, if you're gonna let in David Ortiz, you gotta let in Rafael Palmeiro. Like, once you let the one steroid user now, at this point, what's your reasoning for keeping him out? You already let a steroid user in. So at this point, what's your justification for keeping Palmeiro out?
Rick.
Rafael Palmeiro should not be in the Hall of Fame. All right. I'm very consistent. I don't want to see steroid users. His numbers are legendary. The hits, the home runs, RBIs, they're up there with the greats of all time. But unfortunately, he took steroids. Shame on you, Rafael Palmeiro, because I believed you. So unfortunately, no.
And I'm going to put him back in that same wing that I'm putting all those other steroids, because if you're going to, because like you said, like Brett said, you already put one in. How do you how do you justify? Oh, you took them for what, and got tested positive once, or you tested positive 3 times? Like, how do you differentiate yes or no? Put them in the wing with all the other steroid users. Let them have their own wing. If you're going to put one in, you got to put the other ones in. Okay, one more. Curt Schilling. In or no, Eric?
No. I mean, okay. Let me rephrase it. I mean, I number one, I can't stand the guy personally. He played for the. I hated him when he went as a player, and I hated him as a broadcaster, and I especially loathe him now. But with that being said, I mean, problem was, he had a really good career, but it just wasn't a consistent career. Like he has 216 wins, yes, but his career, although he does have 3,000 strikeouts, it was. I think the 3,000 strikeouts in the World Series ring gets him in alone, but overall wins and loss wise, he was never very consistent. Like, especially early on in his career, it was toward the middle to latter part of his career where he actually became good. So I'm just going to put him in just because 3,000 strikeouts is hard to get.
Brett, Curt Schilling, in or no?
Yeah, no, at the end of the day for Curt Schilling, it was like Eric said, the strikeouts do it for me. 3-time World Series using NLCS and World Series MVP. So I'm going to go with yes, he should get in.
Rick, Curt Schilling.
This one actually is tough for me because this is a borderline one. I know people are going to say he shouldn't be in. Like I said, I can't stand him. I think he's a jerk. I think he's a racist, homophobic idiot. But we're talking about his stats. And then, unfortunately for me, I'm going to say no. The wins are not there. He did have a lot of up and down seasons. When he was great, he was great. When he wasn't all that good. And this is a close one, but I'm going to have to say no.
And I'm going to say put him in. As much as we may dislike his character, I can't say I can't go back to the people that were in before my time and say their character was good or bad. The Hall of Fame is not based on your character. The Hall of Fame is based on your performance. Mm-hmm. Over 3,100 strikeouts, an ERA of 3.46 over his career. Yes, he won only 216 to 146 losses. He was a 6-time All-Star, 3 times World Series champion, World Series MVP, NLCS MVP, a Roberto Clemente Award, 2-time MLB wins leader, and 2-time National League strikeout leader. He's on the Phillies Wall of Fame and the Boston Red Sox Hall of Fame. I say put him in. I do want to say that we've had a couple of comments from numerous different people. I want to thank Will Vogel, George Eichhorn, and Jeremy Ballrick for chiming in and putting in comments in. We're now going to come to the parting shots stage of tonight. But before we do that, I'm going to do a little station identification. Please subscribe to the South Florida Tribune on our YouTube channel. Visit www.southfloridatribune.com to see all of our written content or visual content. We have all our videos up there. To advertise, call 954-304-4941. If you want to listen to the audio portion of our show, it can be heard on iHeartRadio, Apple, Google, or wherever you get your podcasts. If you have any ideas for any of our shows, please email us at southfloridatribune@gmail.com. And now, parting shots. Let's start with Brett. Your parting shot for tonight.
My parting shot is I really hope Green Bay doesn't do very well for the rest of the year. It's a rough thing to say, but I feel like our ceiling as our team is currently constructed is even if we do sneak into the playoffs, is a first round exit into the wild card round. At that point, I'd rather have a high draft pick. So Green Bay, let's try out Jordan Love. Let's test out some of these younger players. And let's start looking forward to next year because I don't think our ceiling is quite there for this year.
Eric, your parting shot.
I mean, Green Bay, you knew the receiving corps was going to be an issue. You should have stared at the stats a little more. Instead, you set up you failed Aaron Rodgers for the rest of his career, which I don't know how much gas he has left in the tank. But this offseason, you got to find yourself some receivers because right now you don't have any.
Rick, your parting shots.
Well, this is the Wisconsin show. We're talking about Green Bay. I'll stick with Green Bay. Aaron Rodgers, you need to be a better teammate. Stop throwing your team under the bus. We already know you got Mike McCarthy out of there. You're talking bad about everybody else. You know who you need to blame? Look at yourself in the mirror. You took all that money, and they could have used that money to get some wide receivers, better players. Show up to spring training. Show up to practice. Play, participate. Gel with your team. He hasn't done that at all. He's one of the most selfish human beings in the NFL, and that's saying a lot because there's a lot of them. Stop trying to be like Nicolas Cage and doing your little Instagram posts. Grow up, be a better teammate, and stop throwing everyone under the bus. And you know what? I hope you and Tom Brady retire. We're both sick of seeing you. I know I am, and I know a lot of people are. Please just go away.
Okay, so before I give my parting shots, I want to reach out and say kudos to Scott Morganroth for assembling my crew here tonight. I appreciate everything that he does and all that he does on the broadcast side. I also want to send out my condolences. He lost a great aunt of his that was 103 years old. He lost her on Saturday. So that was Mary Must. Now, to my parting shot. It's a kudos and a question. I give kudos to American Family Field because they are hosting men and women's basketball this Friday. The basketball teams are playing. My question, though, is why wouldn't you do a non-conference game and do Wisconsin against Marquette or Wisconsin against Green Bay? Have an interstate rivalry game at American Family Fields. Put those two teams together on a baseball field. I think is great. I think it's great for the state. It's great for excitement in Milwaukee. But why you would do the men's? It's Wisconsin versus I believe it's Stanford.
Yeah, Stanford.
Why you wouldn't do it against Marquette? I don't understand. But I'm still happy to see that you're utilizing that field and doing something different. Letting different fans, because not all the fans are going to travel to Wisconsin to see a Badger basketball game. So kudos for letting some of the Milwaukee fan base see a game in person in a different venue. With that, we're going to go around. I'm sorry.
There's a big alumni base from UW here in Milwaukee.
Yes, there is. So with that, I'm going to let everybody go around the horn and let people know how they can get a hold of you. and I want to thank all of you guys. This has been a really good broadcast. So, Eric, go ahead.
You can find me on Twitter at Sports Team News, or you can follow my blog at Belly Up Sports, where I'm writing about all things baseball.
Brett, how can we get a hold of you?
You can follow me on Twitter at Brett Gardepy, or on Facebook. I also have a podcast I do, Gardy3. You can listen to that on Spotify or Anchor. I do take comments, suggestions, criticism, anything you got on the Gardy3 Facebook page as well.
Rick, how can they get a hold of you?
You can find me on my website, www.charlottebats.com. You can go on there, sign a petition to bring Major League Baseball to Charlotte, North Carolina. I'm also on Facebook at Charlotte MLB, Charlotte Bats Baseball. I'm also on Instagram at Charlotte Bats. I'm also on Twitter, Charlotte Bats Baseball, and you can contact me on my email address at cltbatsbaseball@gmail.com.
For us, please subscribe to our South Florida Tribune YouTube channel. You can see more broadcasts like this, Fire Up Wisconsin. We also have a Fire Up Michigan, Fire Up Florida, Fire Up. We have 108 Stitches baseball talk. We have the Sports Exchange. We have Inside the Pigskin, and we have more. Come follow us at Tribune South. To advertise, call 954-304-4941. You can listen to the audio portion of the show. So if you're driving home and you want to listen to a podcast, find us on iHeartRadio, Apple, Google, or wherever you get your podcast. Guys, it's been an incredibly great evening. My first person here, Scott, who started the show, is coming back for...
All right, I've got to add this thing that I was listening all day long. Okay, Fred McGriff would hit the 500 home run plateau if it wasn't for work stoppages. And we all know full well, okay, that the 500 mark to me is one of the numbers that get you in the Hall of Fame. So I realize you guys had a great show. You didn't need me, but you guys were unbelievable. But you know what, Eric? I'm glad that you did this with Candy, because we'd have disagreed on 8 or 10 of these things, man.
Yep, that's why I was here, Scott.
It'd probably drag on longer than the Titanic.
Oh, I got news for you, Eric. You and me gonna have a different conversation, my little man, my little buddy. But no, I would say that Fred McGriff would have had that 500 number if you didn't have to deal with work stoppages, and that would have made this conversation slightly different than the Crime Dog. So I guess since I mentioned it on our first show, I think what was amazing about this topic is how Rick and I and the rest of the crew, I can see the differences in them, and it might just give me ideas to incorporate certain topics from one show to the other, because the crews are 365 degrees different. Well, I shouldn't say that. Rick was on it, so it's different. So anyways, you guys did a good job. Proud of you. You guys are in capable hands with Candy. Just had to make sure that before we ended the show that the Crime Dog would have hit 500 if it weren't for labor stops. There you go, Candy. Take it away.
With that, tonight's been a great evening. Thank you, guys. We'll catch you next time on Fire Up Wisconsin.